If you're thinking about launching a credible organic cosmetics line, well, the chemistry itself, that might actually be the easier part.
Mm-hmm.
The real mountain to climb, it seems, is building that defensible fortress of documentation. Navigating all the regulatory stuff, getting transparent sourcing locked down, and just making sure every single clean claim you make is totally audit ready.
That's exactly right.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit. Looking at the source material, it's clear choosing a private label partner isn't like picking the cheapest supplier for, I don't know, widgets.
Not at all.
Your partner is really your risk manager, aren't they? And your compliance engine. They're kind of like a co-creator who should speed up your launches, handle the global regulatory maze, and basically protect your brand's integrity from day one.
Absolutely. And that's the mission for this deep dive, really. We
Right.
want to move past just looking at the unit cost,
Right.
and zero in on those critical, maybe less obvious factors you need to weigh up when you're evaluating a partner holistically. So we'll be diving into the details of certifications, breaking down formulation models.
In-house versus outsource.
Exactly. Exploring deep sourcing traceability, and crucially, walking you through a really structured request for proposal or RFP process.
Okay.
The whole goal is to give you a framework so you can compare your options without any sort of ambiguity creeping in.
We really have to start where credibility itself begins, which is that whole certification landscape.
Definitely.
I mean, if your target market is that clean, beauty-focused crowd, those logos on the packaging, they aren't just nice to have. They're basically the ticket to entry, right?
They absolutely are, yeah. So we need to introduce the big three standards: Cosmos, Ecocert, and Natru. Understanding their specific differences is just key if you want to set realistic expectations. And frankly, avoid making claims that could get you into trouble down the line. They are distinct.
Okay, let's kick off with Cosmos. When should a brand really insist on this one? Make it the non-negotiable.
Well, Cosmos provides what one source, Dr. Maya Chen, calls the gold standard, particularly in the European market.
Gold standard.
Yeah, it's a very robust, widely recognized framework. It often serves as the baseline for truly organic claims, especially if you're aiming for the EU or, other markets where consumers have really strong organic expectations.
Okay.
It's very prescriptive. That means it has strict bans on certain substances, requires really high organic content percentages, and puts a huge emphasis on traceability and even the ecological side of your packaging.
Right. So if a brand is going for that top tier, no compromises, clean beauty image, Cosmos is likely the standards they need. But Ecocert, that one comes up a lot too. What's the subtle difference there? Is it just slightly less strict?
It's different. Ecocert has a similar breadth to Cosmos, but historically it's put maybe a stronger emphasis on a blend of organic content and those broader ecological and social criteria, what we now often call ESG.
Ah, the ESG angle.
Exactly. Lucia Morrow points out that a lot of big retailers really respond well to Ecocert. Why? Because it kind of forces brands to demonstrate a strong sustainability story, ethical sourcing, supply chain stuff, alongside the organic integrity. It's more of an integrated picture of clean.
Okay, that makes sense. Now here's where it gets really interesting for me. What about brands prioritizing a natural first story over super high organic percentages? I'm thinking like complex stuff, maybe highly pigmented makeup or certain sunscreens.
Yeah, that's where Natru often fits perfectly. Dr. Elena Park notes that Natru tends to appeal to those kinds of niche segments. It's designed to be a more, let's say, lenient standard for a natural claim, but still completely credible.
So it's still credible, just different focus.
Right. It works best for products marketed primarily on their natural origin rather than needing to hit those really high strict organic content numbers. And importantly, it uses a specific product categorization system, so it clearly tells the consumer the level of natural versus organic content. No misleading allowed.
Okay, so regardless of which logo you end up targeting, Cosmos, Ecocert, or Natru, the certificate itself is just paper until it's properly verified, right?
Absolutely.
What should you, listening now, be looking for when a potential partner sends over that documentation? What are the red flags?
Okay, 4 critical things to check. First, obviously confirm the logo's there, but crucially, check the official scope. Is this certificate for the specific product family you want to make, or is it just a general certificate for the whole facility? Big difference. Second, check the renewal date. Is it current, and how often do they renew? Third, look at the documented ingredient restrictions tied to that cert. And fourth, look for clear proof of their traceability protocols.
And if that scope doesn't cover your specific product, or the batch isn't mentioned.
Then you've got incomplete, basically audit-vulnerable documentation. It's a major risk.
That distinction, facility cert versus product family cert, that sounds absolutely crucial. Okay, let's switch gears from the principles to actually making the product. This brings us to formulation and, of course, intellectual property, IP.
Right.
What are the main advantages of keeping R&D in-house? Assuming you can afford it.
Well, the number one advantage of in-house formulation is usually speed to market.
Makes sense.
Direct internal development cycles just cut down lead times dramatically. You avoid all the back and forth with an external partner, plus you generally get stronger IP protection. When your secret sauce is developed under your own roof, you seriously lower the risk of leaks, which can happen when you work with outside labs serving multiple clients.
Yeah, that's a real concern.
Right.
But like you said, not everyone can afford their own fancy cosmetic chemistry lab.
Yeah.
It's expensive. So when should a brand actively look for a partner with outsourced R&D capabilities?
Outsourcing is great for unlocking specialized niche expertise.
Like fragrance houses or specific ingredient tech.
Exactly. You get instant access to specialists, cosmetic chemists, maybe dermatological experts, high-end fragrance creators without carrying those huge internal fixed costs. And another key point, external teams often get you through regulatory clearance faster.
Really?
Just because they're usually much more familiar with all the cross-border labeling requirements and safety assessments for multiple regions like the EU, US, Asia Pacific, they've done the paperwork hundreds of times before.
They've already paid their learning tax, so to speak.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. So regardless of the model, whether you develop the formula in-house or the partner does it, what are the absolute must-have capabilities a partner needs to show in their labs? What are the key readiness indicators?
You absolutely have to evaluate their on-site labs and, critically, their stability testing capabilities. This is fundamental.
Stability testing.
Yeah.
You're making sure the product doesn't separate or go weird on the shelf.
Exactly. And it's not just about doing accelerated testing. Heating it up to simulate a year on the shelf in a few weeks. That only gives you an approximate idea.
Right. It's a simulation.
They must also commit to doing real-time testing. That means actually watching a sample sit there on a shelf under normal conditions for 12 months or more. That's the only definitive proof that the formula won't separate, change texture, change color, on your customer's bathroom counter.
That's crucial for customer experience.
Totally. And they also need a really robust preservative strategy that fits perfectly with Cosmos or Ecocert rules, whichever you're aiming for.
Okay, formula's locked down, stability testing is solid, IP strategy is clear. Now, let's talk about the actual stuff that goes in the bottle, the physical ingredients. What's the absolute backbone of a strong, defensible, clean label claim here?
Ingredient sourcing and traceability. It comes up again and again in the source material. The absolute need for deep traceability, meaning tracking ingredients right down to the specific lot or batch level.
Lot or batch level. Why so specific?
It's essential for precise recall management. Think about it. If one specific batch of, say, lavender essential oil turns out to be contaminated, you need to know exactly which finished products ended up with that specific batch.
Right, so you don't have to recall everything.
Precisely. You have to prioritize partners whose own suppliers have solid, organic, non-GMO sustainability certs, and you need to verify their audit status, too.
Okay, I can only imagine trying to maintain that super detailed batch-level traceability when you're dealing with ingredients sourced from all over the globe, especially the high-risk ones. What happens when the supply chain inevitably gets volatile, like a drought hits somewhere or there's a shipping crisis?
It is a nightmare, and this raises a really important question. What does happen when the supply chain breaks? A truly robust partner has to have proactive risk management strategies ready to go.
Meaning backup suppliers.
Exactly. Alternate supplier readiness, geographic diversification for those high-risk ingredients. But here's the kicker. Switching suppliers, even for what seems like a minor ingredient, can suddenly trigger a need for recertification or retesting.
Because the new ingredient might be slightly different.
Precisely. Maybe a tiny pH shift, or a slightly different concentration of an active compound. Your partner must have the internal processes nailed down to quickly manage that reformulation, get it approved, and get it back into production without delaying your launch by 6 months.
Wow, that's a massive hidden cost of that volatility, isn't it?
Huge.
Okay, moving on to regulatory compliance itself. I know the rules are constantly changing depending on where you want to sell.
Constantly. You absolutely need a partner that lives and breathes these regional variations. You've got the EU cosmetic regulation, FDA guidelines in the US, and now especially the UK's post-Brexit labeling rules. They all have unique quirks regarding packaging claims, banned substances, mandatory testing.
It's a minefield.
It really is.
And
Beyond stability, safety testing is paramount. That means mandatory microtesting, microbiological testing, especially for anything containing water, which is like a playground for bacteria if not preserved correctly.
right. And finally, let's talk manufacturing rigor. We need proof they can actually make this stuff consistently, batch after batch at scale.
Absolutely. Look for clear evidence of good manufacturing practices, GMP adherence, and formal quality assurance certs like ISO 9001. But it's not just about the final output volume. It's all about control during the process. Focus specifically on their in-process controls.
In process controls. What does that actually look like on the factory floor? Is it someone just glancing at the tanks?
Haha. No, it's much more technical. It means the real-time quality checks happening during the production run itself.
Like where?
Like testing the pH or the viscosity of a batch every hour while it's mixing, or checking the fill weight of, say, every 10th bottle coming off the line. These continuous checks are what actually guarantee consistent quality, and their whole QA system must generate audit-ready evidence for whatever certification standard you've chosen.
Meaning if an auditor walks in.
If the auditor asks for the mixing log and temperature chart for batch number 123 from 3 months ago, your partner better be able to pull up that documented proof instantly. No excuses.
Okay, this whole thing, certifications, R&D choices, managing global supply chains, constant testing, really can feel overwhelming. So how should someone listening cut through all this complexity and make a confident choice when picking a partner? Is there a structure?
Yes, absolutely. You need a phased and structured RFP process. Don't just get swayed by the first slick sales presentation. After you've done your initial needs assessment, figuring out what you actually require, the absolutely critical next step is the data room and documentation request.
Data room. Sounds serious.
It is. This is where you systematically collect all those essential documents we've been talking about. Their quality manuals, their internal QA procedures, records of supplier audits they've conducted, regulatory dossiers they've prepared for other clients.
And this is where things like COAs come in, right?
Yeah.
Certificates of analysis for the ingredients.
Precisely. A certificate of analysis is non-negotiable. It's the document that verifies the chemical and, importantly, the microbiological specifications of each raw ingredient batch they receive. You must demand COAs for your key ingredients because that's the proof that the supplier's claims about purity or potency are actually true.
Got it. Check the paper trail first.
Exactly. Only once you've thoroughly reviewed that paper trail should you move on to sample evaluation, getting actual product samples made, and then the crucial site visits. See it with your own eyes.
Okay, let's talk about the scoring rubric that the sources mentioned for evaluating these partners. This really tells you what the smart brands prioritize, doesn't it?
It really does. If you connect this scoring rubric back to the bigger picture, it clearly reveals where the true value and, honestly, the risk mitigation lies. The criteria that consistently get the highest weighting, typically like 12 to 15% each, are certification compliance, capacity and lead times, and ingredient sourcing and traceability.
So the operational stuff.
Those three areas essentially define your operational control and your brand's safety net.
Now, here's the specific insight that really jumped out at me from the sources. I noticed that pricing model and total landed cost, it's typically given the lowest weighting in the entire rubric, like surprisingly low.
That's right. Pricing usually clocks in at only about 3% weighting in a successful, mature evaluation model.
Only 3%.
Yeah. And this clearly demonstrates that a sophisticated brand doing its homework prioritizes process control, brand integrity, and long-term risk management way above just shaving pennies off the initial cost.
So you're not just buying product.
You're effectively purchasing a sophisticated compliance system, an audit defense mechanism. Think about it. The potential cost of one failed audit, one brand-damaging recall, or one catastrophic supply chain failure will absolutely wipe out any tiny savings you thought you gained by chasing that 3% lower bid.
Wow. That really puts the cost discussion into sharp focus. Okay, and what about timelines? Any practical benchmarks people should keep in mind as they go through this pretty rigorous process?
Yeah, definitely don't expect things to happen overnight. After you get through the initial evaluation and scoring stages, You need to plan for a significant chunk of time before you're actually filling bottles. Conservatively, plan for maybe 4 to 6 weeks just to finalize the contracts after you finish negotiating terms.
Just for contract.
Just for the lawyers and back and forth, yeah. Plus, you absolutely need to build in a buffer, a necessary cushion for final regulatory clearance or potentially any unexpected reformulations needed to meet those strict standards like Cosmos. Rushing this final stage is just a recipe for launching a product that you can't actually defend in an audit.
Okay. Good practical advice.
So maybe just to wrap up, a few final practical tips for success. First, really prioritize partners who have a demonstrated, established track record specifically in organic and natural cosmetics. They already get the complexity.
They speak the language.
Exactly. Second, use that detailed RFP rubric we talked about early in your conversations. Use it to suss out their process control, their collaboration maturity, not just their price list. And third, document absolutely everything. From stability test results to change control forms for ingredient swaps, it'll make audits faster and potential recalls much less painful.
So, boiling it all down, what does this really mean? We've seen pretty clearly that choosing a private label partner for organic cosmetics is way less about finding the rock bottom unit price.
Much less.
And far more about essentially buying a comprehensive, integrated system for managing risk and compliance. Something that protects your brand for the long haul.
That's the absolute core message. And maybe a final thought to leave folks with. If this structured evaluation process used by successful brands tells us that pricing should only carry maybe a 3% weight in the final partnership decision, what hidden, potentially massive non-monetary costs, things like regulatory fines, brand reputation implosion, total product recalls, are you exposing your brand to if you choose a partner primarily based on getting the lowest possible bid? Something to really mull over as you build out your strategy.